The midnight game. Rain lashed against the attic window, the wind howling like a banshee. We huddled around the dusty trunk, a forgotten relic from my grandparents' time. Inside, nestled amongst moth-eaten clothes and yellowed photographs, lay a leather-bound journal. My friends, Sarah and Liam, leaned in with morbid curiosity as I cracked it open. "It's a diary," I whispered, tracing the faded script. "Cool find," Liam said, his eyes gleaming. "Let's see what secrets Grandma had." The diary belonged to my grandmother, Amelia. As we flipped through the brittle pages, a chill snaked down my spine. Most entries were mundane recipes, weather observations. But then, tucked between a shopping list and a doctor's appointment, was a strange sequence of symbols and cryptic notes. "The midnight game," Sarah breathed, her voice shaky. A legend whispered amongst teenagers flickered to life in my mind. A ritual performed at midnight, involving a mirror, salt, and a candle. Supposedly, it opened a doorway to the unseen world, inviting contact with something. "Don't be ridiculous," Liam scoffed, but Sarah's eyes were wide with a morbid fascination. "It's creepy, but wouldn't it be cool to see if it's real?" A shiver ran through me. I knew better than to delve into the occult. My grandparents, especially my grandmother Amelia, always warned me about things that lurk just beyond our perception. But the allure of a dare, the thrill of the forbidden, was too strong. By midnight, the storm had morphed into an unsettling stillness. We sat on a threadbare rug in the attic, the single candle casting an eerie glow on the symbols Sarah meticulously drew with salt on the floor. With a pounding heart, I held the mirror, its surface reflecting a distorted image of the cramped attic and our pale faces. As the clock struck 12, a gust of wind howled through a broken window, extinguishing the candle. We were plunged into darkness, the only sound our ragged breaths. "Did it work?" Sarah whispered, barely audible. Suddenly, a cold prickle ran down my spine. An unnatural silence had descended upon the room, thicker than the darkness itself. Then we heard it, a low scratching sound coming from the depths of the attic. "What was that?" Liam breathed. My voice stuck in my throat as the scratching turned into a guttural growl. A shadow, impossibly large and shapeless, seemed to coalesce in the corner of the room. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drum against the encroaching silence. Panic took hold. We scrambled out of the circle, scattering like terrified rabbits. Sarah tripped, hitting the floor with a thud. The scratching grew louder, a horrifying symphony of claws scraping against wood. "Sarah, come on!" I screamed, grabbing her arm and yanking her up. We sprinted towards the attic door, Liam close behind. It wouldn't open. We hammered on it with our fists, but the knob wouldn't budge. Terror choked me, hot and thick in my throat. The shadow shifted, taking a monstrous shape taller than the attic itself. Jagged teeth gleamed in the darkness. A stench of rotting flesh filled the air. My scream died in my throat. We had nowhere to run. The creature lunged, its long skeletal arms reaching for us. Liam let out a strangled cry as it grasped his shoulder, its cold, clammy grip sinking into his flesh. He screamed, a raw, desperate sound. But within moments, his screams were cut short. A sickening crunch, followed by a chilling silence, filled the air. The shadow withdrew, its darkness thicker than before. Sarah and I clung to each other, paralyzed by terror. The creature's rasping breath caressed our ears. It circled us, the silence screaming louder than any sound. Suddenly, Sarah shrieked, pointing to the window. A lone ray of moonlight sliced through the darkness, illuminating a dusty, cobweb-draped crate in the corner. In a desperate bid for survival, we scrambled towards it. We flung the crate open, hoping for some miracle. The inside was empty except for a single dusty object, a small, tarnished hand mirror. It was eerily familiar, the exact same mirror used in Amelia's diary for the ritual. Without a thought, I snatched it up. Maybe, just maybe, there was something in the ritual that could undo our madness. I lifted the mirror, reflecting the creature's grotesque form back at it. For a moment, the creature seemed to falter. Then, it let out a blood-curdling scream, a sound that promised the very fabric of reality tearing apart. It reared back, clawing at its shadowed face, as if the reflection itself was a source of torment. The revelation ignited a flicker of hope. Could mirrors hold the key to banishing this entity? Sarah and I locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between us. In that moment, desperation fueled a strange clarity. We scrambled back, dragging the heavy crate with us. It created a flimsy barrier just enough to hinder the creature's immediate advance. With trembling hands, I flipped through Amelia's diary, scanning for any mention of mirrors in the ritual. My eyes raced over the faded script. There it was, tucked away in a corner: shattered reflection, banishment's reflection. Throwing Sarah a desperate look, I pointed to the words. "We need to break the mirror." Panic threatened to consume me, but the image of Liam's mangled form spurred me on. I fumbled with the mirror, desperately searching for a way to shatter it. Sarah, catching onto the plan, grabbed a wooden slat from the broken crate. Together, we launched an assault on the mirror, the creature's enraged shrieks echoing through the attic. Wood splintered, the glass groaning in protest. Finally, with a heart-stopping crack, the mirror shattered into a million shimmering shards. Silence. A dreadful, all-encompassing silence. We held our breath, our hearts hammering against our ribs. The darkness in the room felt thick enough to suffocate us. Had it worked? Just as I dared to breathe a sigh of relief, a cold wind swept through the attic, swirling around the shattered fragments. The shadows writhed, coalescing into a chilling parody of Amelia's face, superimposed on the monstrous form. "Foolish child!" the figure rasped, its voice a cacophony of whispers and screams. "You cannot unsummon what has been called forth." Terror clawed at my throat. This wasn't the creature we'd summoned. This was something far older, far more powerful. My grandmother's warning echoed in my mind. Things that lurk just beyond perception. The shadow figure stretched out a skeletal arm, its gnarled fingers reaching for us. There was no time for despair. With a surge of adrenaline, I launched myself forward, shoving Sarah out of the way. I screamed as the creature's icy grip closed around my body. It lifted me effortlessly, pain flaring from every point of contact. Sarah's scream ripped through the room, followed by a sickening silence. The last thing I saw was her reflection in the shattered mirror fragments, a look of pure terror and grief etched on her face. Then, the darkness swallowed me whole. There was no pain, no screaming, just an all-encompassing void, a chilling sense of nothingness. I had become another victim of the ritual, another soul claimed by the darkness beyond the mirror. And somewhere, in that forgotten attic, the creature stood triumphant, its shadowed form silhouetted against the pale light of dawn. The whispers of the wind carried a chilling message. The midnight game was far from over. The hunt had just begun. Night of the Hunter. An unnatural silence had settled over the village since dawn. Not a bird chirped, not a cricket chirped. The wind itself seemed to hold its breath, leaving the leaves of the towering pines frozen in an unnerving stillness. The chilling silence was the sign. The sign Old Man Luca, the village elder, had warned us about. The night hunter was coming. Every few years it would snatch someone from the village, leaving only a faint, unsettling hum in the air. The only way to survive the night was to be completely sealed in. My wife Anne and I had secured the windows with heavy planks, the chill of dread seeping into our bones with each hammer blow. Fear, however, was a luxury we couldn't afford with our 5-year-old son Tom, wide awake and buzzing with curiosity. "Papa," he piped up, his voice a discord in the suffocating silence, "is the monster real?" Anne and I exchanged a helpless glance. We'd tried to shield him from the village whispers, the hushed tales of the unseen creature that stalked the night, drawn to the light of human souls. But fear, like wildfire, finds a way. "There's no monster, Tom," I lied, my voice cracking. "Just strange weather." He seemed to buy it, thankfully, his attention flitting to the window. "Can I peek?" "No!" Anne hissed, the fear finally breaking her dam of composure. But Tom, ever the adventurer, wriggled out of her grasp and reached for the curtain cord. My blood ran cold. "Tom, don't!" I roared, the sound echoing through the deathly quiet room. He paused, but had already pulled the cord. The curtain opened the window slightly, and in that same heartbeat, a deafening crack shattered the silence. A massive claw, black as pitch and dripping with an otherworldly ichor, ripped through the wooden plank, sealing the window. Our blood turned to ice. The night hunter. It was here. Tom, his face white as a ghost, let out a choked scream. Anne grabbed him, pulling him back from the window as another monstrous limb tore through the wood. Panic seized me. I fumbled for the oil lamp, its meager flame casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. The creature was a grotesque parody of a beast, a tangle of razor-sharp claws, obsidian muscles, and a gaping maw that reeked of something putrid and ancient. Its form seemed to shimmer, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. Anne thrust Tom into my arms, her eyes wide with terror. "The back door! It's the only way out!" We scrambled through the house, the creature's monstrous bellows echoing behind us. The stench of decay filled the air, making me gag. We burst out the back door, the biting night air a slap of cold reality. The moon, a sliver of bone white, cast an eerie glow on the deserted village street. We didn't have a plan, only blind flight. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. The creature emerged from the shattered window, its form eclipsing the moon for a moment. Its eyes, burning embers in the darkness, locked onto us. We ran, desperation spurring our legs to impossible speeds. The creature, surprisingly agile, lumbered after us, the heavy thudding of its steps shaking the very ground. I chanced a glance back, my stomach churning. It was gaining on us. A twisted tree root snagged Anne's ankle, sending her sprawling. Just as the creature lunged, I whipped her up and carried her, Tom clinging to my back. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed in protest. The village square, our only hope, loomed ahead. A guttural roar ripped through the night. It had reached us. The creature's maw gaped wide, revealing a horrifying maw lined with dripping fangs. This was it. This was how we died. Just then, a booming voice split the night. "Get to the church! It's warded!" Old man. Luca stood at the edge of the church cemetery, his frail figure silhouetted against the moonlit sky. We stumbled towards him, the creature nipping at our heels. A thunderous crack echoed as Luca slammed the heavy oak door of the church shut. The stench of the creature clawed at the door, its furious bellows shaking the very walls. Tom whimpered, burying his face in my shoulder. Inside, the flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows on the pews. Luca knelt before a worn wooden cross, chanting in a language that sounded both ancient and forgotten. The air crackled with an unseen energy pushing back against the creature's assault. The night wore on, measured by the creature's frustrated roars and Luca's unwavering chants. Exhaustion finally claimed me, and I drifted into a restless sleep. I was awakened by the absence of sound. The air was still, the creature's roars silenced. A sliver of dawn light peeked through a stained glass window, casting fractured rainbows across the dusty floor. Fear still clung to me like a shroud, but a sliver of hope flickered within. Anne stirred beside me, her eyes wide and filled with relief. Tom, nestled between us, was fast asleep, his face peaceful. Old man Luca sat by the altar, his head bowed, his body shaking with fatigue. "Is it gone?" Anne rasped. Luca, his voice hoarse, nodded slowly. "For now. The wards held, barely. That beast is ancient, its hunger unending. It will return." A wave of despair washed over me. This wasn't a solution, merely a reprieve. We couldn't live like this, constantly on edge, waiting for the next night like this. As the village stirred, shaking off the night's terror, I saw a grim determination in their eyes. We would rebuild the window, reinforce the wards, but we wouldn't just wait. Fear had paralyzed us, but the near-death experience had forged a different emotion: defiance. We decided to seek help from the neighboring villages, rumored to possess knowledge of combating the Night Hunter. Tom, thankfully, seemed to have forgotten the previous night's events, consumed with the excitement of a new journey. The road ahead was uncertain. We didn't know if we would find answers or if they would be enough. Yet, clinging to that sliver of hope, we left the village behind, the shattered window a stark reminder of the unseen threat that lurked in the shadows. The Night Hunter might have been repelled, but the true battle, the fight for our survival, had just begun. A desperate sprint. The shriek died in my throat, replaced by a ragged rasp as I forced my lungs to work. The woods, once a haven of whispering leaves and chirping crickets, were a symphony of terror. The creature's guttural roar echoed through the dense canopy, each thump of its unseen feet on the forest floor a hammer blow to my already shattered heart. It hadn't been a full hour ago that Mark and I were laughing, roasting marshmallows by the crackling fire. The air had been thick with the scent of pine and campfire smoke, a peaceful lullaby. Then, the first scream, a sound that ripped through the stillness, raw and primal, unlike any animal I'd ever heard. Mark. It had been Mark. He'd been dragged out of the circle of firelight, a blur of flailing limbs and panicked shouts. I saw a flash of obsidian teeth, a glimpse of fur that seemed to absorb the moonlight, and then he was gone. Panic had seized me then, a primal terror so strong it propelled me forward without conscious thought. I ran, my legs pumping like pistons, ignoring the scrapes on my exposed arms as I tore through thorny bushes. The creature was fast, impossibly fast, but in the dark, I clung to the hope of distance, of some hidden sanctuary in the labyrinth of trees. Now, exhaustion gnawed at my legs, turning them to lead. My vision swam, dotted with flashes of white. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves sent a new jolt of fear coursing through me. Then I heard it again. Closer this time, the guttural roar accompanied by the sickening thud of something heavy passing through the undergrowth. Desperation sparked a sliver of defiance in my chest. I wouldn't be another easy meal. I darted off the worn path, plunging into the thickest part of the woods. Thorns tore at my clothes, branches whipped at my face, but I pushed on, fueled by the primordial need to survive. The darkness was oppressive, the air thick with cloying humidity. I could barely see my hand in front of my face, but the creature's roars were my compass. Each one grew louder, filled with a chilling hunger that sent shivers down my spine. Ahead, a faint, almost indiscernible glow flickered in the distance. Hope, fragile and desperate, bloomed in my chest. Maybe a clearing, maybe a road, anything that would lead me away from this living nightmare. I stumbled onwards, ignoring the pain that had become a constant companion. The glow grew brighter, revealing a ring of giant luminescent mushrooms. Their pale light cast grotesque shadows that danced maniacally on the forest floor. But beyond, I saw it. A break in the trees, the moon casting a pale sliver of light on what looked like an abandoned road. Freedom. The words surged through me, a lifeline in the churning sea of terror. I pushed through the final gauntlet of undergrowth, my lungs burning, legs threatening to give way. Just as I reached the road, the roar split the night again. This time, it was right behind me. I didn't dare look back. All my energy went into propelling myself forward, my ragged breaths rasping in my ears like the death knell. The road, a dusty ribbon cutting through the dark, stretched before me, empty and silent. It was my only hope. I sprinted, ignoring the gravel digging into the soles of my tattered shoes. I could feel it gaining on me. The heavy thumps were closer now, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that sent tremors through my already battered body. I dared a glance back. On the edge of the tree line, I saw it. A hulking creature, easily twice the size of a bear, its obsidian fur rippling like a living shadow. Its eyes, two malevolent red orbs, burned with an unholy hunger. But the most terrifying thing was the rows of razor-sharp teeth lining its massive maw, dripping with what I fervently hoped wasn't Mark's blood. I choked back a scream and focused on the road, a single desperate prayer echoing in my mind. Please, God, let me outrun it. The creature charged, its powerful legs churning the earth beneath it. It was moving at an unnatural speed, closing the distance with horrifying ease. Tears streamed down my face, blurring the already dim landscape. Ahead, a lone silhouette emerged from the darkness. A dilapidated gas station, its windows boarded up, a single rusty pump standing forlornly by the curb. It wasn't much, but it was a potential barrier, a fleeting hope. I dug deep, pushing my body beyond its limits. My lungs burned, my muscles screamed in protest, but I couldn't afford to stop. Not now, not ever. Just as I reached the gas station, the creature roared, its hot breath singeing the back of my neck. I scrambled around the rusted pump, using it as a flimsy shield. The creature didn't hesitate. It slammed into the pump with a bone-jarring crunch, metal twisting and groaning under the impact. A shower of sparks erupted as the gas line tore open. Fear mixed with a desperate gamble in my stomach. The creature roared again, a sound tinged with frustration as it circled the mangled pump, the metallic tang of fuel filling the air. I forced myself to stay focused. There had to be something, anything, in this derelict station I could use. My eyes darted across the chipped and faded paint of the building. There, hanging askew on a rusty nail, was a fire extinguisher. Hope, a flicker in the all-consuming darkness, flared in my chest. It wasn't much, but it was the only weapon I had. I snatched the extinguisher, its weight surprisingly hefty for its size, and crouched behind the mangled wreckage of the pump. The creature slammed into the pump again, tearing another gaping hole in the metal. This time, The gas began to flow, a slick stream snaking across the cracked asphalt. It whined like a banshee, a sound both terrifying and oddly beautiful in its deathly promise. Suddenly, the creature stopped its assault. The red glow of its eyes narrowed, a flicker of intelligence seemingly sparking within their depths. A guttural growl escaped its throat, laced with a chilling amusement. It was toying with me, waiting for the inevitable. My hand trembled around the fire extinguisher. It felt pathetically inadequate against such a monstrous foe, but I had nothing else. Taking a deep breath, I braced myself. As the creature lunged, its massive form blotting out the moonlight, it roared, a sound that shook the very ground beneath my feet. I aimed the fire extinguisher nozzle at its gaping maw and squeezed the trigger. A blast of pressurized CO2 erupted, a white plume momentarily obscuring the beast. It recoiled with a surprised yelp, the sound unlike anything I'd heard before. The CO2 stream continued, temporarily freezing the creature's advances. But I knew this wouldn't last. The hissing gas would eventually run out, leaving me defenseless. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the backdrop of the creature's irritated growls. Thinking fast, I aimed the last burst of CO2 at the puddle of spilled gasoline that now shimmered under the moonlight. The gas plume hit the flammable liquid, igniting in a blinding flash. A wall of fire erupted, engulfing the creature in a roaring inferno. The beast shrieked, a sound unlike anything I'd ever imagined, a mix of rage and pure, unadulterated terror. It stumbled back, thrashing wildly, flames licking at its thick fur. For a moment, there was only the roar of the fire and the creature's horrendous screams. It was a horrifying spectacle, yet a part of me couldn't help but feel a macabre sense of triumph. But the fire wouldn't hold it forever. I knew that instinctively. I stole a glance at the gas station, its windows glowing an eerie orange from the reflected flames. A final, desperate plan formed in my mind. Taking a deep breath, I sprinted towards the gas station, the heat from the fire already searing my exposed skin. I slammed against the boarded-up window, the wood echoing a hollow thud. Through the grimy glass, I saw a rickety counter cluttered with empty snack packets and faded lottery tickets. Beyond that, a dusty display case held forgotten bottles of motor oil and long-expired cans of chewing tobacco. But what I needed was right next to the cash register, a rusty metal crowbar. With a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed a nearby rock and smashed the window, ignoring the shards of glass that rained down around me. My fingers fumbled with the rusted lock securing the display case, finally forcing it open. I snatched the crowbar, its weight reassuring in my hand. Glancing back at the fire, I saw the flames beginning to die down. The creature loomed at the edge of the inferno, its fur still smoldering, eyes glowing with an even more terrifying rage. It let out a guttural roar, the sound sending chills down my spine. There was no time for hesitation. I lunged for a gas pump far removed from the fire, the one with a faded, out-of-order sticker plastered across its front. As I reached it, the creature was upon me. With a desperate heave, I used the crowbar to pry open the fuel compartment. Gasoline sloshed out, drenching my clothes and shoes. The creature snarled, its hot breath singeing my face. "Come on!" I screamed, my voice hoarse. The words died in my throat as a primal growl erupted from the creature's maw. It charged, an unstoppable force of fury and pain. I didn't have time to light a fire, to gamble on a fiery demise for both of us. There was only one other option, a desperate, reckless bid for survival. I grabbed a discarded lighter from the counter, its chrome surface scratched and dull. With shaking hands, I flicked the ignition wheel. A spark sputtered, then flared to life. my vision blurred with tears, a mixture of fear and the acrid sting of gasoline fumes. The creature was inches away now, its razor-sharp teeth bared in a monstrous grin. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the heady, flammable vapor, and raised the lighter high. Just as the creature lunged, I lunged too, pressing the open flame into the gasoline-soaked fur on its chest. The creature roared, a sound that ripped through the night, a scream laced with pure agony. Flames erupted on its body, a monstrous inferno consuming its hulking form. I stumbled back, falling to my knees as the creature thrashed in a fiery dance. The gas station filled with the deafening roar of the flames, the heat radiating outwards like a malevolent aura. I squeezed my eyes shut, burying my face in my arms, wishing for the sweet oblivion of unconsciousness. But the world remained terrifyingly present. The heat intensified, the gas station groaning under the strain. Then, a deafening explosion ripped through the air. The ground trembled beneath me, sending a shockwave that threatened to tear me apart. My ears rang, my vision a kaleidoscope of colors. When I dared to open my eyes, the world was a scene of utter devastation. The gas station was a burning inferno, its roof caved in, debris littering the ground. The creature was gone. Only a smoldering crater marked the spot where it stood moments ago. The air crackled with electrical energy, a sickly green glow emanating from the burning wreckage. My body ached, every muscle screaming in protest. I was covered in soot and gasoline, my clothes singed and hanging in tatters. But I was alive. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I vomited violently onto the smoldering asphalt. Tears streamed down my face, a mixture of relief and horror. I had survived, but at what cost? Mark was gone, consumed by that monstrous creature. The gas station, its windows glowing like angry eyes, was a pyre for both the beast and my innocence. As the flames died down, painting the night an eerie orange, a horrifying realization dawned on me. There might have been only one creature tonight, but the forest held countless secrets. And somewhere out there, in the depths of the woods, something else might be watching, waiting for its turn. I stood there, shivering in the cool night air, the weight of the unknown crushing down on me. The taste of gasoline still lingered in my mouth, a bitter reminder of my desperate gamble. Taking a shaky breath, I turned away from the smoldering wreckage. There was no point dwelling on the horror. I had to get away. With a deep ache in my heart and a body racked with pain, I began walking, my eyes scanning the darkness, the silence pressing down on me like a shroud. The woods had become my enemy now, every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, a potential harbinger of doom. But I had to keep moving, driven by the primal instinct to survive. As the first streaks of dawn painted the horizon with a faint blush of pink, I knew my journey had just begun. The nightmare might be over, but the terror would forever linger in the shadows of my memory. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. Also, share what stories you would like to hear next.